Where's that darn Karate Jew? They're making us rabbinists look horrible.
Shalom and welcome to another exciting edition of Torah Watchman Show LLC, available to YouTube subscribers and members. I hope you can be a member very soon. Very easy to do that. Just create a free Google Gmail account. Okay, I've had mine for years over there. But anyway, this Parshah Toldot, this show is hosted by none other of your humble Karate servant, Gerar ben-Emmett. The name of this Torah Watchman edition is Parshah Toldot. This is the next sidra in order, in sequence, that we're moving forward in the book of Bereshit, about the last third of that book, if you could like to say. Remember, what the last Parshah, we dealt with the legacy and memorial of Sarai. Her life ended, at a ripe age, and she lived a very long life, but, Abraham was mourning for her, and then things just kind of turned around in his life and everything else. They had Esau was growing up to be a young man, teenager, probably getting up to 16, 18, and 20, and so on, getting up to the age where you start to look at your age. Abraham lived up to, past 120 and 140 range, that area, and he started thinking, my life, is not going to be here forever, and I need to find the right wife, the right woman for my son. So there was a lot of logistical things there going on with that. So long story short, we wrapped up the last parasha. Remember, Esau met Rebekah and Aram, the land of Abraham's forefathers, his cousins, his relatives, nephews, in-laws, outlaws, whatever. And then they had a child, children by the name of Yaakov and Esau, of course. Listen, Rebekah had the same legacy of infertility, problems similar to Sarai. Of course, God had controlled this. And you have to ask yourself, why did it take so long in Rebekah's life? She's probably well in the 30s by then, maybe early 40s, when she finally became pregnant. And there's a lot of interesting stories about this, that it wasn't until, Esau was actually, prayed for her, maybe some healing taking place or something like that. But, God was looking for the exact and correct Nefesh Yehudi to be born from Rebekah. And the timing is in the details when you talk about Elohim. And it's a miraculous work in people's lives. How many people do not wait on God? We know the story about do not birth an Ishmael, right? You know what that happened, We don't want to go there. But, there was a lot of patience there with Esau and Rebekah. He loved her very much, and he waited on her. And there's no talk here about him getting a concubine or Rebekah offering a maidservant and that kind of thing. Because I think Rebekah actually learned a lot being married to Esau, and the family traditions of morality and justice, civil justice, that was passed on from Abraham and Sarai versus the polytheistic family that she came from. But she was really made out of good stuff. She really was a very virtuous Eshekah, to be said. So this story, essentially, in a nutshell, is going to talk about the journeys of Esau, the journeys of spending time with the Philistines and things of that nature. There was a lingering drought in the land of Canaan for various reasons. There was a lot of issues with the children of Rebekah. I think there's a very significant lesson to be taught on the birth process of Yaakov and Esau. If Esau could be called, my servant Yisrael, Esau could be called anti-Israel, right? And whether you are for the abortion movement or against it, there's a very strong anti-abortion message in this Parshah, and I'll get to that. Let's get started. But first, Aliyah, again, Rebecca, the wife of Esau, had trouble conceiving. She had years of infertility. This plagues women in America. Plagues issues in other countries, in third world countries, where malnutrition is in that nature. But again, God was waiting on the right nefesh Nehudi for her to become pregnant. Okay, so, and there was no discussions here about going in different routes like Hagar and everything else. They waited on each other and they prayed for one another. And it says Rebecca prayed specifically for her children, and for a woman to really be identified as a Jewish woman, to be a mother, to be an imma, is so critically important to have children. And this is God's commandment to be fruitful and to multiply. And of course, Jews today, at least Orthodox Jews, observant Jews, especially in Israel, they commend themselves to have many children as they can. Why? Because 600,000 children died in the Holocaust. When we think about the 6 million all the time, we also think about the horrific Holocaust that occurred on October 7th in Israel at the bloody hands of Hamas. Okay? So she was concerned, Rebecca was concerned about exceedingly difficult pregnancy. It was advised by Elohim that it was due to two children, twins in her womb, wrestling adversarially, competitively between two nations, literally warring within her womb. And it's very interesting that she had a vision, probably a night vision. I don't know if it's a trance or something, but it's fascinating. The Torah says she prayed and sought God's advice, not the God of her fathers, not statues and idols, not all that polytheism, but she sought the God of her husband and the God of her father-in-law, to have children. And it meant so much when she finally had Yaakov and Esau. It's very interesting. Before they were even born, God was having active conversation with Rebecca about the fetuses within her womb, the growing babies within her womb, like they were already delivered. In other words, they had souls, they had life force within them, they had personality. This doesn't sound like many people in the abortions movement, talking about that children get a soul when they're born. If this was true, and the Rosh and the others claim this to be true, and I don't follow Rosh anymore, excuse me. If this is true, then why were these children warring with each other in the womb? Why was God thought it was purposeful and needful to instruct Rebecca, do not worry about your pregnancy. You waited this long. Everything is going to be just fine. It's harder for a woman to have twins versus one child. Okay? So this is just think about it deeply. Elohim was so intimately connected with these children within Rebecca's womb. He was giving her advice that even her husband, for whatever reason, was not giving her. So she had twins, actually, and twins were born essentially about the same time. There was interesting that she gave birth to a very hairy, ruddy boy named Esau, probably had red hair, like me. Not as hairy as Esau, thank God. And then a second son was born clutching his brother's heel, almost like, later on, Yaakov battling with an angel. It's just wrestling and not letting go, letting go like that. So, somehow the hairy, ruddy baby Esau came out first, and then immediately followed, and they saw the birthing process. It's amazing. I imagine Rebecca had a midwife or someone was helping her with this birthing process. She would be ceremonially unclean for quite some time after that birthing process, and I don't think Esau was directly involved in that. Of course, he was happy to hear he had not only one healthy son, but two healthy sons. So the first child that was born was Esau within a few seconds of Yaakov. Okay? So you would think, first of all, he would have the birthright because he's firstborn. So bear with me. Now, Esau was as diametrically and polar opposite with his brother Yaakov as myself and my brother. I mean, my brother's completely different from me. I don't talk to him anymore. Okay? Not because I don't want to, it's because he refuses to communicate with me. He's just so involved in his own life. He does his own thing. I respect it. I still love my brother. And the point is, whether Esau was so different from Yaakov, it doesn't mean that Yaakov did not love his brother. He just didn't understand his mental process and how he worked and what was important in his life and his hobbies and things that were so different from Yaakov. They actually had nothing at all in common with one another. Now, while Esau became a hunter, think about Cain, that was a hunter, that kind of person of the earth, Rudy, rough kind of person, literally killing animals with your hands and bow and arrow and spears and all this, a master hunter, someone who went out and got game, venison and from deer and antelope and things of this nature, rabbits, chasing after animals continually. He couldn't eat enough, as far as animals and things. And he probably boasted, I don't know if he had a head of a deer or something in his man cave. I don't know. I'm just joking. But that was very important to Esau, living off the land, not growing vegetables and things, but hunting the land for animals. Okay? Now the personality of Yaakov was different. He was a very honest and true man. He spent time reading, okay? He spent time in his tent reading and studying, academia per se. Of course, the sages says he frequented schools of the Torah. There's stories about he went to see Shem and other things like this. It's not in the Torah at all. The thing is, there were papyrus writings there, okay? Abraham wrote down all of his adventures and stories with his wife, Sarah, going to Egypt, going to Philistines, and all her issues with infertility and the miracles, the angels, the issues with Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm sure he wrote all this down for personal note so he could pass it down to his children. So that writing there, of course, Abraham was gone at this time. He had passed away about the time Yaakov and Esau were born and growing up to be young men at this time. That Yaakov he was interested in his family history, his pedigree, of the land of Panaram, the Mesopotamia, and he was interested why he was living in the land of Canaan and not listing, the land with his grandfather's ancestry there. This dichotomy there. He knew the land of Canaan was dry and it was a drought situation. Had evil people there, very violent tribal warfare and things of this nature. I'm sure all of these in his mind. So he's learning. Probably he was talking to Ishmaelites and other people, tribal people, nomads and things like that, coming through, merchants and everything else, and learning about the land. He was just kind of a bookworm per se, to put it lightly. So one day, after Rebecca gave a clue or information that she knew that Esau, he knew his weaknesses for food, for spicy food, certain kind of soup and chili, like 5-alarm chili, that kind of thing. She knew about that. And she was following the lives of their children. She was very concerned about Esau. She probably felt, I've lost him. I don't want to lose Yaakov, because he seems to be connected to God in a special way. He seems to have a vested purpose and fate in his life. So she tried to reach out to Yaakov and convince him, hey, if you don't do something now, Yaakov, you're going to lose that birthright. Because Esau technically is entitled to the birthright because he came out of the womb first. Okay? But there's a way here to deceive Esau and to get his birthright. So what happened here? Okay? So one day Esau came home from the field very, very hungry. Okay? Again, it was probably hot in the summer. And he pleaded with Yaakov to give him some of the stew he was cooking. Now, he knew that Yaakov was a homebody, stay close to mom. Maybe he was the mother's boy. I don't know. But he was there taking care of the tents and the herds and things like that locally to the tribe there. So he knew where to find Yaakov, and probably knew that he was cooking in a shelf or something, a kosher shelf. And he said, hey, I am dying. I'm famished. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I feel like I'm going to pass out and faint and die right now. And so Yaakov agreed. He probably smelled the food cooking. And this was all part of Rebekah's plan. She knew the routine and schedule of Yaakov's older brother Esau. Okay? So she had planned this out with Elohim's help. I want to mind. This was not a conniving, conceited, deceitful woman. Okay? She was doing exactly what God had mandated and told her to do. Okay? Maybe angels whispering in the ear at night. I don't know. So Esau came home and then smelt this food, and he pleaded and implored to Yaakov to give him some of that food. Now, Yaakov was told by Rebekah to say this: okay, Esau, I agree with you. I worked hard making this food all day long. Okay? There's not a lot left. I was going to save it. I was going to save it for our father. I was going to save it for mother. But, I'll give you this deal. Okay? You know that birthright kind of thing. Okay? I'll give you as much food as you want until you are not famished anymore, until you're satisfied. Okay? And, of course, Esau is very strange. Said, what good is my birthright if I'm going to die here? So he's a very materialistic kind of person, very earthly person, like a golem per se, that he all could think about is his physicality of life and not the spirituality of life, okay? So he agreed to this silly test here, this trickery by Rebekah and Yaakov to trade his birthright for a bowl of lentils, a bowl of soup, okay? And the way your description to is interesting. He's literally Yaakov holding the bowl and pouring it down his throat. This is the kind of, you hear about hoarders and all this, this is a manly man kind of person, okay? And I'm not making fun of it. It's just, he's very different, okay? So this is barter and trade, exactly, okay? So again, there was a famine in Canaan, and Esau was escaping the famine by traveling to Egypt via Philistine, when Elohim told him to remain in Philistine and not go to Egypt. So God rerouted his trip. Now, why did he do these things? Why did he think about Egypt and Philistine and things of this nature? Because he read the notes of his grandfather. He read the notes from his father that advised him what to do in certain situations. And he wanted to live in the footsteps of his family, okay? Because he knew that God was with him. He wanted God to be with him too. So when you have a drought situation and you're responsible as a shepherd for sheep and herd and goat and things like that, you have to go to a water hole. You have to find a brook or stream that still has water in the time of severe drought, and then grassy fields that generally grow around the valleys and low places there where the water has not completely dried up, okay? So he eventually went to Philistine, okay? That is the Gaza Strip pretty much as part of it today. And no, the Palestinians are not Philistines. I talked to them recently about this because they were Greek, okay? That's all I got to say. Elohim also informed Esau that he would visit, God had informed Esau that he would visit upon him all the blessings that he had promised to offer him. How would that make you feel? Now you just deceitfully robbed your big brother of his birthright. And I always told you, birthright is a special thing. It's not just a will and testament, like we give so much property to this son versus this son and things like that, money in the bank and all that. It may be that, but it's much more. It's a spiritual blessing, it's the anointing of Elohim passed directly from his father to Yaakov at the will of Elohim, the divine creator. Okay? So second aliyah, Esau settled in Philistine, the country of Philistine, the land of the Philistines. Okay? They were polytheistic too, but they were relationships and business, prior business transactions between Abraham and the previous king of Philistine at that time, and they remembered that family. Okay, so they maybe had some friendly relationships there. So when the townspeople inquired regarding his wife, get this, he told them that she was his sister. How did he know this? It's from those notes, the scopious notes of his grandfather and father. Okay, fearing that otherwise the Philistines would kill her, so he told the people there, that his wife was his sister. So it's very interesting here. So go back a little bit here. We're talking about Esau. Went to the land of the Philistines, probably with his son Yaakov, and then he had issues there with the people there that he did not trust completely, and he thought that the Philistines would steal away his wife, just like his father Abraham, with that story with Sarai. Well, they're not. And of course, it's human to fear, and it's human to lose faith and trust in the divine creator. I don't know, there's a lot of silliness in this, but he learned this tradition, per se, from his father Abraham. So eventually, Abimelech was still alive, evidently, king of the Philistines, probably way up in the years. Notice that Rebekah was Esau's wife, and through that he recommended Esau. Why are you telling me this fib? Why are you telling me this story? I heard this story before, and I nearly got in trouble. I nearly died for taking away your father's wife, Sarah. So he issued a decree that no one touched them, no one interacted with them, because he considered him as a holy, righteous man, as a prophet. Okay. So while in Philistine, Esau sows crops and miraculously harvested 100 times more than the field's normal value. So everything that Yaakov touched, God's anointing was there, God's protection there, God's ministering of Malachim and angels were there with him. Very interesting. How do you know God is with you? You usually see a row of daisies in front of you. You usually see things going your way, or you have good friendships, not people that stab you in the back. When you're really doing God's work, God has invested something in you, talents per se, to be able to finish that work and be a servant, to be well approved before the Lord your God. This is the life of Esau, okay? The third aliyah, Esau became extremely wealthy. He also redug some of the wells that his father Abraham had dug and had forgotten. Maybe he had to dig them deeper because the water level had shrunk so much because of the continuing drought situation. The Philistines eventually became envious of his wealth, and they asked him to leave. Now, this is the first note here of anti-Semitism, okay? So you have a people here that became envious of the wealth and good fortune of someone they had welcomed into their tribe and welcomed to their country, and they wanted to kick them out of the country. So very interesting here. And remember, Abraham and King Abimelech had signed foreign policy peace agreements with them of non-combat, very interesting. So Esau complied. He moving away from the city and settling in the Gerar Valley, okay? I'm going to show you a picture of that here. Okay. There, Esau's servants dug 2 new wells. And so these was like marking your territory. Okay. The Philistines contested his ownership over these wells. So again, wells, you could actually get into civil disputes and even a war, a blood feud over that. So when you stake your claim on the land, what first thing you do, you build a well. And then you build a community around that well. So there was issue with that. The third well he dug was uncontested. So he gave in to them to avoid conflict. Probably at the leadership of Elohim told him, it's not time. Elohim appeared to him and in a night vision or trance and said, don't worry, I'm with you. I know you believe that things are not going quite your way. I know you feel bad about what happened with King Abimelech. I know you feel bad those wells you had at stake before for your people, that you lost them, but you have one well there. Elohim promised him, whatever you have, whether small or great, I will compound that and make it greater. Okay? So Abimelech approached Esau and requested to enter a peace treaty. So it's interesting. Abimelech, I wouldn't say he was a righteous man. I think he was a fair man, unlike Laban, not conniving to Laban. Abimelech trusted Abraham when he was there, saw that he was different, saw that he had miracles upon him, an anointing upon him. He did not want to get in the way of a servant of God. He really did not. Okay? Fifth of all, Esau agreed to Abimelech's request, and on that day, Esau's servants informed him that they had successfully dug another well as a covenant and contractual promise of non-combat, non-military, adversarial kind of fighting, per se. Now, however, what was happening, with, Esau and Rebekah, going in the valley of Gerar after being in Philistines and kicked out of there, the adulterous ways of Esau greatly disturbed, especially Rebekah, what their son was doing. He had married 2 wives, and he married a woman that was already married to someone else. This is actually a Noahide prohibition, believe it or not, okay? So Esau had advanced in his age and became blind. Rashi and everyone said why he became blind. Maybe it's because of these idols and of Esau and the burning incense, all that. Who knows? He just became blind because he was becoming an advanced age, okay? And this happens sometimes, unfortunately. There's a reason for this, okay? So Esau had an advanced age, became blind, and he summoned at the end of his life Esau and told him that he wished to bless him. There was no doubt whatsoever that Esau believed in his heart of hearts that Esau, not Yaakov, was the firstborn son entitled to all of his blessings for his inheritance, okay? Now, but first he would go to the field and hunt some game for him to eat. Rebekah overheard this conversation again. Rebekah was looking out for the interests of Yaakov, the slightly younger but more godly brother, and she wanted that inheritance to go to him. So this is an opportunistic woman here that was doing the Lord's work. You don't believe me? It is. There's even in the Torah it says, Esau I have hated, Yaakov I have loved. And, God does not hate the souls of anyone. He despised Esau's adulterous behavior. And it embarrassed the family, Rebekah and Esau, while the behavior of Yaakov comforted them. So consider that, okay? So Rebekah overheard the conversation. She advised Yaakov while Esau was out on one of his longer hunting expeditions, probably several hours, to don on furry, hairy clothing, like a sheep fur or a goat fur or something like that, and wrap it around his arms to emulate the hairy arms of Esau. And also to wear some of Esau's clothes to smell like the earthly, rooty kind of person, sweat and all this. They didn't have deodorant back then, or right guard. and to smell like his brother, to disguise who his true identity before his blind father. This sounds wrong and it sounds nefarious, but there was a reason for all of this, okay? There's a reason why Esau was made blind. If he did not lose his vision, he would see clearly that this was Yaakov trying to deceive his brother and gain something that was not rightfully his by tradition, okay? So this happened here is that Rebekah prepared meat and gave it to Yaakov and to bring it to his father. Rebekah knew exactly what her husband loved, okay? The spicy, the rich, seasoned food. You lose your sight, then your olfactory senses and everything take over, right? So he smelled the food, smelled the goat skin, the clothes of Esau, and concluded this has to be my son Esau, even though the voice is a little bit different, right? I don't know if Yaakov's voice was higher, Esau's lower, not Jermaine. So this is what happened. Even the clothing and then the sheep's fur or goat's fur was placed in the neck. So Esau had hair all over his neck, all over his chest, all over his back. He's seen men like that, okay? So Esau was fooled. And when Yaakov approached his father, he presented himself as his oldest brother, Esau, okay? So we're closing in on the sixth Aliyah. And what happened is that Yitzhak ate the meal and gave the blessing to Yaakov. And Yaakov quietly left at Rebekah's bidding while Esau returned. Okay? Now, when Esau returned and tried, he said, hey, he made the soup and made the lentils and made all the food and everything else. Esau already had a feast. He was not hungry anymore, and returned to him to get a blessing from his father. And of course, Esau was confused. I just gave you a blessing. Why are you back here with more food? I'll just eat. And of course, Esau concluded that this was his brother's deception, and he became enraged at this. The sixth Aliyah, Esau blessed Yaakov with the dew of the heaven, the fat of the earth, and granted him a mastery over his brother, not knowing what he was saying and not knowing the person's true identity. No sooner than the blessing ended, Esau came right in, like I said. And this was a complete misunderstanding on Esau's part. He did not mean to hurt Esau's feeling. Esau was furious, and to the point he wanted to kill his brother. To kill his brother over something he did himself. He bartered and traded his birthright much earlier, for a bowl of soup for his birthright, which is spiritual. He was carnal and physical. He did not look at spiritual things. I don't think he even believed he had a nefesh or soul. I really don't. Okay? So what happened here is that Rebekah asked Esau to send Yaakov to Haran to find a wife, to get out of Dodge, to get out of the tent, because at this time Esau was furious, hot-headed. He was saying things he probably didn't really mean about killing his brother, strangling his brother, whatever. He was angry, and rightfully so, okay? He had his birthright stolen, and he embarrassed himself because of that, because he said, what the heck did I do, okay? So Esau conceded. He said, I trust your judgment, Rebekah. Yes, I don't want him to marry any of this Canaanite. I don't want him to do the same thing that Esau does. You're right, I'll say. So Yaakov left for Haran, upon Aram, the land of Abraham's forefathers. In the seventh Aliyah, Esau sent Yaakov to his brother-in-law Laban's home. This is a very interesting guy, okay? You remember the story with Rebekah, okay, before. So to marry one of his daughters, and he was probably getting up to age 2 at the time. Now Esau married again and again and again, and this time to a person by the name of Ma'kalat, the daughter of Ishmael. Now, why after 2 or 3 marriages, some of these women, incidentally, were already married, and there was innuendos here, without Lashon Hara, that he was playing the field for women, just a womanizer, carousing with women, sleeping around with women, marrying them if he wanted to. He knew he needed to have children to increase his nation status, tribal status. And the more sons you had as a man, the greater you're considered among other people. Okay? Now, he wanted to get in his father's good graces, Rebekah's age, by marrying someone other than his Canaanites. And that was first thing. When you marry a Canaanite, you bring in their adulterous religion in your tent. This was horrific. And some of the people said that's why Esau lost his eyesight, because he saw some of the idols and smelled some of the burning incense, got in his eyes, and took his vision away. It's not in the Torah, okay? But that just reminded me. So Esau married a daughter of Ishmael to get back in the good graces of his parents, okay? So pretty much this is where this Parashat ends. In summary, we have Yaakov, the righteous one, Israel essentially, deceived his brother through a bowl of soup and trade and barter for his birthright. He got in trouble because Rebekah was playing favorites with him. Esau became very angry at all of this. When he was finally deceived, Esau was fuming about this and waiting to find Yaakov, swearing to himself he would kill his brother on sight if he saw them. And probably told his people the same thing. If you see my brother, let me know. Because there's a blood feud there. Now Yaakov went to the land of the Chaldeans to find a wife, okay, at the hands of Laban. And we'll get into this wonderful story next Parshah. But you know, this story is full of adventure, full of brotherly rivalry, full of love and affection and things of this nature, full of the dichotomy of truths, how people can be so opposite from one another as born twins. Most twins I've seen, they have similar personalities, but these people, Esau and Yaakov, like they were born from two different mothers. And of course, the issue about them struggling in the womb, and then God intervening and talking to Rebekah, you know, your sons are actually struggling in the womb because they will be two great nations one day. Think about that. If God approves abortion and thinks that a fetus is just water and fluid and tissue in the womb of a body, as Rashi thought, if he thought about that, why would he be so invested in giving a vision and a prophecy to Rebekah about the future of her unborn children? Consider that. I thought this was a good Parashat. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to not be too long-winded. A lot going on in Israel today, a lot going on in the world. I don't have to tell you anything you haven't even heard on the news outlets everywhere. But please pray for the Shalom of Jerusalem. Please don't let your heart be filled with hate and anger like Esau toward all Palestinians, all Arabs, and don't demonize all Muslims because of the actions of those that murdered our people in Israel. Okay? Listen, there's a lot of evil in the world. There's a lot of tests of virtue in the world. And the world is almost, it's like a short fuse is about to explode, but I think it's the days of Mashiach. It's not too far away from us. I hope so. At least Israel is united in a way I've never seen before, and that's a blessing. I hope we can learn from our mistakes this time. I hope and pray that never again really means never again. You know, please be thinking about the mothers and fathers and family members that lost their children, lost brothers and sisters, and fathers and mothers. There's some children that are orphans for the rest of their life now because their families were murdered in Israel. Please have compassion of that. If you're Christian here in this prayer, like I said on Veterans Day, if you see a veteran, shake his hand, shake her hand. Listen, the same thing here. If you see a Jew out there, if you're Christian, whoever you are, I had a Palestinian say, I'm sorry about what these people are doing to Hamas. I'm not affiliated with them. I hope you're, as a Christian, I hope you're a lover of Israel, and you don't want to try to shove a baptism tract down a Jew's throat. I hope you can say, I'm praying for the people of Israel. I am so sorry. My heart goes out for your people. I know you're in a time of mourning right now. It's like you sit Shiva every single week. It's like it just doesn't go away. And I feel like crying many times, depending on music and things I hear, and news I hear. I just feel like I want to stay in bed, depressed, situational depression. we're going through all this trauma. We really are. Because, I was not in the 40s. I was not during the Holocaust. I did not, only knew a few Jews, they're gone now, that had numbers tattooed on their arms by the Nazis. I didn't go through that personally. The Schindler's List, Fiddler on the Roof, other stories about the Holocaust and everything. A lot of videos there on Polish Jews. All of this. It's just horrific to see that. About Anne Frank. About all these stories about children and people in the Holocaust, and it really pricks your heart. It seems like it's so far away, but this has happened this year. So what are you going to do about it? Don't let it make you a worse person out of it. Have compassion in your heart. Try to forgive those people that are your enemies. And pray for God, not you bear the sword of justice, but that God will judge these people and vindicate the victims, right? Whether it's Reb Gerar, ben-Emmett signing out, thank you for your attendance to this Parshah. God bless you. Shalom Aleichem. Refuah Shalima in the flu and cold season. Take care. God bless you. I hope that you mend a broken friendship from your past. I hope that you find reason to fall on your face and ask forgiveness before God. I hope you have a place of reconstitution, regeneration in life to be a better person. Take care. And I'll see you real soon. I really enjoy your company here, and really you motivate me by seeing those views go up and the thumbs go up. Please click notify, personal notify, and subscribe if you're not a member of the Torah Watchman Show channel. Take care.